Hello Stampin' friends, this is Lisa from Live and Let Stamp, and today I'm going to be showing you how to make card number 4 in the Stitch Stockings card class using the Stitch Stocking bundle. This was my July 2026 signature card class, and we will go ahead and jump right in and get started with our card base, which is Real Red. Gonna bring in my cutter. And this is a standard A2 card. So we're gonna go ahead and cut that at 5.5 and score at 4.25. Blade out of the way, use our scoring blade, and then we're going to need 2 rectangles of basic white at 5.25 by 4. One is for a layer on the front of the card, and one is for the inside layer. So 2 at 5.25 by 4. And then we're going to go ahead and get our DSP. This is from a Stitched Season, and this is Snowflakes at Night. That's what I call it. I just give them names so you can differentiate them from the rest of the DSP. And we're gonna cut one at 4.75 by 3.5. And then for the inside of the card, we're just gonna need one strip that is a 1/2 inch, and that's easier to do on the right side of our cutter, by 4 inches. And we will just go ahead and set that aside for the inside of the card. So that's all of the pieces that we need to cut with our cutter in advance. All right, we're gonna go ahead and glue these 2 panels down. So I'm going to use my bone folder to make a nice crease on my card. Decide which way I like the best. I like that way. And our white panel is gonna go next. Just gonna use some Stampin' Seal for that. Right on the front. And then we're gonna put our snowflake layer on. And we're gonna do that with a little bit of a tilt. Just wanna make sure it's still inside the white. And that is ready to go. We'll just set that aside. Now we need to work on the stocking. So we're gonna go ahead and get our dies. And we're going to need the stocking. And it's a large stocking. We're gonna need the cuff of the stocking. We are going to need this tree, and we're gonna need this inside of the stocking. The main stocking piece is gonna be done in Real Red. Oh, that's pretty perfect. perfect. So I'm just going to go ahead and cut that out. Thanks. We're going to cut the tree twice. We're going to do it once using this red with the white dots. And we're going to do it once using the green plaid. Okay, so that's for that. And we're also going to cut out this piece twice. We're going to do it once in the green plaid. Let's see, that makes the most sense right there, I think. Actually, this way. You always want to remember to turn your die the actual way you're going to be cutting it if it's an odd shape like this. And then we also need some of these bottom pieces. So I don't really need to cut the whole piece. I just need to cut that bottom part. So that will work. I'm just going to trim that around so I can remember how it goes on there. And then this will be done in white for the cuff of the stocking. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and get these cut. All right, so we need to do a little bit of prep work. This is ready to go, and this is ready to go right here. But for this, so this is gonna go on so that it looks like patchwork. So we just are gonna take our snips and snip apart the pieces. They're just held on by a tiny little bit at each end. And the cool thing is that you can make another card with the other three that you don't use on this one, because you have a total of 6 little patch pieces. So don't throw away the 3 you don't use. You can use them again. That's okay, so what we're gonna want for this one is that piece and this little toe piece, and we want the heel. And these 3 we can set aside for another card. Now the other prep we have to do is, I want this tree to nest inside this red piece, but we see that there are also some little pieces here. So you can use your snips to take out this red tree. You can also, if you're being really careful, you can probably do this and so that you can use the alternate on another card. Use the green outside and the red inside. If you want to do that, you might want to use an X-Acto knife, a craft knife. There is a craft knife that you can use for this purpose, and I'm actually going to use that. So this is the craft knife that fits on the multi-purpose tool here. I think it goes, nope, it goes that way. There we go. And I use just a piece of chipboard. These come in the kits, Stampin' Up! Kits. So you can use that craft knife. I think it is actually easier than using the snips, and you can be a little more exact. There. I'm cutting away from the tree. I'm not cutting this way because I don't want to accidentally cut too far into the tree. And I'm just going in and checking where it's still connected. Okay, I'm gonna take off that. If you have a light board, if you lay this on a light board, you can really see exactly where to cut to. Yep, that was actually pretty easy. Easier than the snips and more exact. So I'm going to do the same thing here. If you don't care about doing it in reverse, if you always want to have a green tree and a red outside, you could just go in here and kind of cut this piece out. Actually, on this one, and try to be careful so I can use it in another card. It'll also make sure this other one fits pretty well. Okay, so now that should nest right inside there. Perfect. And that will nest in there on a different card. So we'll just put that aside for another card. So now we're ready to go ahead and put our stocking together. So you can, if you want, cut off the top. I left it on mine, my first one, but you know what? I'm gonna try this one, cutting it off. So you could do it either way. It'll just be another layer, but let's go ahead and try this. I'm going to use some liquid glue on this. And then this will go above that. And then the cuff should, yep, that looks like I've got it lined up pretty well. Because that'll actually cover exactly. Okay, I'm just gonna put a little bit of adhesive here inside where the tree's gonna go. And if you wanted to, you could always recut this and put a little piece of brown there so that your tree looks like it has a stem. But I'm just gonna leave this one like this, and it's gonna fit right inside perfectly. Now we just need to put on our little patchwork pieces. It's gonna layer that right over. And this is our toe piece. and our heel piece. Line that up. All right. Now we're ready to add this to our card front. And it will go on a little bit of a tilt to the right. Go ahead and use some, it's kind of a heavy piece, so I'll use a little bit extra. Or you could use the Stampin' Seal Plus. I don't think you need to. So that's just gonna tilt a little bit that way. And very cute. So now we're ready to do our sentiment. Okay, our sentiment is from the Stitch Stocking Stamps. And we're doing Merry Christmas to you and yours, which is right, whoops, here. And then we're going to die cut that with an oldie but a goodie, the Stitched Rectangles die. It measures about 2 3/8 by 1. All right, we're going to add our sentiment with our Stampin' Dimensionals. I'm using small ones. Of course, you can use large ones. I would just put, you know, a couple of the large, but I have an excess right now of the small, so that's my go-to right now. Let's see, let's put one there. I didn't put those on very well, did I? It'll work. Okay. And that's just gonna go right there. So next we're gonna take some real red and white baker's twine. And we need to make a bow, but not by making a bow, if that makes any sense, because we want it to be flat. So we're actually just going to take a glue dot. This is a mini glue dot. I'm gonna tear this off, and there's my glue dot right there. And I'm gonna put that in the center of that cuff and peel that off. And then I'm going to take my twine and I'm going to make this bow. And the reason I'm doing this instead of tying an actual bow is because I don't really want that thick knot in the center. Okay, so to make it look right, it needs to make like a figure 8. So we'll make our little figure 8 here, like that. And I'm going to cut off this end. Make sure that's nice and stuck. And then we're going to take one of our mini Christmas buttons and we're going to place it right on top and give that a little press down and just trim that so it's even and kind of goes on the sides of your tree. Isn't that so cute? So now we just need to do our inside, and we set this part aside at the beginning. Just going to use our liquid glue on the back of our strip of DSP. And place that at the bottom. Look. And then we're ready to add that to the inside of our card, and we will be done. Just kind of ties the outside of the card to the inside to have that same DSP visible on the inside, like so. And there is our card. Card number 4 is complete.